Today is Tuesday, March 23rd, and we have a special speaker today. And I'm going to go very briefly and I will introduce our special speaker. But before I do that, every semester I do 4 to 5 seminars. We invite speakers from Amarillo, from Dallas, from Houston. And the purpose is to help you understand how the world is working. So today we have with us Mr. Jerry Rohane. He's president of Western Builders, but very briefly, let me talk about Western Builders first. The company was founded in 1955 in the Panhandle of Texas, and they were incorporated in 1973. It is one of the largest commercial contractors in our area, Texas Panhandle, and they build and improve structures in the central United States. Their main structures are educational campuses, retirement places, commercial and retail structures, and other buildings, religious establishments, unique industries. And those will include your aviation, Bell Helicopter. All of you know one of the largest employers, Bell Helicopter. And then also food delivery services. Very briefly about the construction industry in the world, this is international management class. It's a $10 trillion industry, very big, $10 trillion. And by 2030, it's expected to reach $15 trillion. There are thousands of companies in the construction. And some of you will be working for companies, these are kind of companies. And a few other comments I have, and that is construction industry in the United States is $1.5 trillion, very big. And it is a very big part of our $20 trillion economy. What exactly we have? Airports, power grid, hospitals, rail, ports, electrical, everything. Construction industry's share of the United States economy is 4%, which is very big. And a few other comments. San Francisco is the most expensive area to build any structure. So now you see, you have to look at the cost. There are 10.2 million workers in this industry, and 10.3% are females, women, workforce. 30% of the construction workers identify themselves as Hispanic or Latinos. Average age in this industry is 42 years, okay? And some of the largest construction companies in the world, Vinci, market value $61 billion. And then we have D.R. Horton, Lanner, Daiwa, all these companies are very big. So let me now introduce our speaker, Mr. Jerry Rohane. Grew up and graduated in Los Alamos, and then he went to New Mexico State University. He had his Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering, and then he worked for 6 years in the U.S. Foreign Service, Idaho. After that, he moved to Amarillo, and he worked for a company in Missouri Valley Incorporated in Amarillo. But he has been with Western Builders for a long time, since 1985. And currently, he's serving as the president of the company. And they have been very successful. You have seen their buildings, our stadium, WT Stadium, West Texas A&M University's stadium was built by this company. And then we have Texas Tech Pharmacy. And then we have so many places in Amarillo. So you go around in Amarillo and beyond and in the Panhandle, you will always see the stamp of Western Builders. And he's very well thought of. Everybody knows him. And he's a specialist in his field. And he also serves on lots of boards and organizations. But one organization I would like to mention is he's also a member of WT125. WT125 was started a few years back, West Texas 125 plan, and he's also one of the advisory committee members. And we really thank him for coming here today. So let's give a warm welcome to our special guest.
Do I need to stand behind the podium?
Sure. Oh, you can come here.
Or here? Sure bet your Zoom world. Well, I'm very thankful y'all would have me come. I heard the introduction and I sit there thinking, who's he talking about? Western Builders is a great company, and I'm very, very proud to be part of it, be an owner of it. And Dr. Anwar gave me 3 major questions to ask, and I'll try and answer all those questions as we go through the course of the next few minutes. But I'll just tell you, when I graduated from college back in '79, my goal was to be with the Forest Service forever, as I'd worked all the summers with them, and it's kind of nice to live in the woods. And when we moved to Idaho, me and my wife loved the area, but I got threatened with a move to Washington, D.C. to be part of a bureaucracy that was just the exact opposite reason of why I went to work for the Forest Service. So then we left and came back down to the Panhandle where my wife grew up. She grew up in Littlefield, Texas. And then a series of events, I wound up with Western Builders. But as Dr. Anwar noted, Western Builders was started in 1955, incorporated in 1973. It was started by a gentleman by the name of Horace Scott. And Horace Scott was Man of the Year in Amarillo. A very, very well thought of man. He actually came out of World War II as Patton's procurement officer. Kind of an interesting sidelight with him. He was quite a salesman. I never met him. When I came to work with Western Builders, he had already turned the company over to the next generation, which was Kerm Albertson and Clayton Knapp. And Kerm was a civil engineer that came out of the power plant world just exactly the same way I did. And Clayton was an accountant that came from his WT graduate. And so when Western Builders was started, it was actually started out of Scott's Lumber. And the whole reason they started was because there was a need to build house camps for people building pipelines for new natural gas lines throughout the western United States. And in order to build those pipelines, they had to have a compressor statement so that the houses that they build to man these for the people to be able to live in while they're building these facilities just required a lot of wood. So Mr. Scott decided he'd start procuring a lot of wood and start a little construction company, and hence came Western Builders, and it grew and grew and grew. And some of the early buildings that they did that y'all would be aware of would be the Harrington Cancer Center in Amarillo, the old Cancer Center. And another building that they did is the old First National Bank, which is now Happy State Bank, which I think y'all are pretty familiar with downtown. But I wound up starting for Western Builders in 1985 after working on power plants for 5 years and learning the structures of that world. But in 1994, my partners, 3 of us bought Western Builders from Kerm and Clayton, who continued to work for the company, and we used the proceeds from the company to be able to buy the company for the next 8 years. We had some really nice big years that helped us to buy it quicker. It was a 10-year plan to buy out, but we bought it in 3. One of my partners retired in 2012, and the other partner, Mike Robertson, is still with us. And the 3 of us have started a succession, or the 2 of us have started a succession plan. We brought in 3 new people, 3 young people who are much smarter than we are. But we intend to keep this company going forever. So in 1994, when we bought the company, we were doing about $45 million a year, between $35 and $45 million total proceeds per year of construction. This year, we're going to do about $120 million. That's not our biggest year. Our biggest year was about $145 million. And you know, that's a point in time, but it's kind of a good perspective of what's happened in the years that go on. Right now, for instance, we're doing our two largest jobs ever. We're doing the new Canyon Independent School District High School. That's about $90 million, and we're doing the new Texas Tech School of Pharmacy, which is another $90 million job. That those two jobs together are bigger than our normal fiscal year. In 1986, we kind of hit a turning point in our partnership and the growth of our company. We actually bid on the Walmart Plainview Distribution Center. Walmart had come into town and built a small store here that we were not successful in bidding. In fact, we weren't even close to it in the bids, and we were discouraged, but there was a big job down in Plainview, and I think everybody's driven by that facility. It's huge. It's 1 million square feet. But we didn't get to bid on the building because it was already put out by the owner, but we wound up being able to bid on the site work, which was all concrete paving. And that was a pretty big job. It was an $18 million job at the time. From that position, Walmart had trouble with the people building the building. And they're a company by the name of Rettenbach out of Tennessee. I'm not even sure if they're still in business, but they're big. They were big at one time. But they got into development work and had some struggles. Once we got on the job site, we started building some relationships with the Walmart people. And they asked us to come to Bentonville. And Kerm Albertson, Mike Robertson, and myself flew to Bentonville to visit with them about future construction projects. Because in 85, 86, you remember how fast Walmart was growing all over the country. And we thought we might be able to take advantage of some of their growth and become part of their team. I can remember sitting in the room when their head of construction leaned over and said, "You guys haven't bid on any of our stores." And he didn't realize that we had bid on the one and didn't get it. And he was asking us all, why aren't you guys taking a look at bidding these stores? And because everything was what they called design, bid, build. It was the lowest dollar, drove everything. And I can remember Kerm looking over at Mr. Murphy at the time and saying, "Well, we're not building any of your stores because we can't build that bad." And I was kind of shocked. I was thinking, "Kerm, please, we're trying to get a job here, not lose a relationship." But that actually turned Mr. Murphy on really big. And we started doing stores for him. And we started doing stores all over the country for him. We were one of 4 contractors in the United States who negotiated work with them, which is a whole different concept that they had never done before that we introduced to them. And we wound up doing one of the regions, and then there were 3 other companies that did the other regions. And what it amounted to is they brought us in at the beginning of the project, and we helped design the project. At the same time, we wound up working beside the architects and developing new prototypes, et cetera, et cetera. And from that relationship, we built probably 10 Walmart distribution centers. We built over $1 billion worth of work for Walmart in super centers, neighborhood markets. We built the first neighborhood markets. We built the first super centers in the Dallas market. We worked in California. We worked in New Mexico. We worked in Georgia, in Alabama, all over Oklahoma and all over the state of Texas. So we grew pretty rapidly during those time frames and built a lot of work. We averaged 7 Walmarts per year, and they just helped us develop a lot of our technology growth within the company and made us smarter because we got to see lots of other businesses and lots of other companies around the country develop and work new methodologies. And Walmart was on the cutting edge of building, but they were also in the government's eye, and the government used Walmart construction to enforce compliance issues that they were just breaking out into the construction world. I think everybody here has heard of OSHA, and OSHA was very strong, but at the time there was no such thing as the stormwater pollution prevention. And so Walmart became kind of the poster child for the EPA to crack down on stormwater pollution prevention planning, and lots of issues came associated with that, but they would target Walmart stores, and it made us a target. And so we just didn't want to get tied up with a bunch of stuff with attorneys and lawyers, and Walmart started developing their management changed pretty significantly. They went from a bunch of construction people to a bunch of attorneys in order to counter the government's perspective on compliance pushing. And when that happened, I saw that and we decided we'd start getting out of that world a little bit and just lessen grow our diversity and lessen our dependence upon them as a company. And that was probably 10 years ago. We have not done any work for them since then. As we were dropping off the Walmart work, we started filling up other work to take its place. We started doing work with Bell Helicopter. And Western Builders has built 100% of the facilities out at Bell Helicopter, if you all have been out there. They've also asked us to go do some work for them in Fort Worth, which we have, and they've been a really good client to work for, super owner. Really fun to build those industrial projects at the same time frame. Being a structures guy, I'd rather do that than I would interior finish outs on buildings, and so it's fun building those big things. How many of y'all been up to Hilmar Cheese in Dalhart? It's the largest cheese producer in the United States. We built that facility, every bit of that. We just had a meeting with the Hilmar people. Flew in from California. They got our name from somebody, I'm not even sure where. They came in and they decided they wanted to form a relationship with our team, and we've worked with them. That was back in 2006, and we've worked with them continuously since then. We've actually built a powder plant, like protein powder, that out in California for them. I heard you say that San Francisco's the most costly place to build in the United States. We got licensed out in California, and it was painful. That is a very difficult place to build. But we did a Walmart distribution center out there, 1,250,000 square foot facility. And we built it in 8 months. And then we did this powder plant out there because we kept our license current. But the compliance and codes are very different out there. The unions were very strong out there. I actually had my tire slit one night when they found out that I wasn't going to be using union forces on the job site. So it was just a different place to build. Not a place I really would like going back to, but we'll follow owners out there if we need to, or if we're asked to. We also started diversifying. We started doing a lot of work for Texas Tech and WT. The Texas Tech Med School up out on Coulter Street, which is right where we're building the vet school now, we've built 100% of all those facilities for Tech. Back when those jobs got started, the state government allowed a new process in construction to start building up. And there's 3 or 4 major ways to build. The design bid build, where the architects design everything and they give you the package of everything that's designed. You go out and bid it, and if you're low bid, you get to build it. It creates a lot of issues inside that I can speak to forever, but that's really not the most efficient way to build. And our world has always been building relationships, and through those relationships, we've been able to build what they call negotiated work, guaranteed maximum price contracts, or CMR, which is how we've done most of the WT work, which is construction management at risk. And what happens there is you team with the designers and with the owner from the very, very beginning of the job, just like we did with the stadium, just like we did with the Ag Center, which we built also. Founders Hall, Centennial Hall, all those we did CMAR. And you work beside them, you keep the budget lined up, you keep schedule built up, you reduce the lead time for materials. You can just build super efficiently. And I can say to date that we've never had a project that's gone over our time frame. I don't think there's too many construction companies that can say that, and I probably just jinxed us big time by saying it. But the bottom line is we work really hard to maintain schedules, and if you're at the job from the very beginning to the very end, you get a lot more planning and cooperation with the owner and cooperation with the designers, and you help the designers develop what you're actually going to build. And it's just a great way to build. So 85% of our work is repeat client work. And that's a big, big, big number. And most of it's through relationships like that type of contracting where you're doing negotiating contracting. Well, the state government allowed that kind of contracting to fall back into their world instead of the low bid world, which is how it's always been built. And when they did that, we were fortunate to be able to get started doing work with Texas Tech, with WT. And with WT, we have built over $200 million worth of projects. And I think there's 34 major projects. And we're currently still on campus. We're doing a lot of small work right now, but we're also doing the nursing school in Amarillo, which is a nice fill-in of not a remodel, but rebuild inside that second story in the new building downtown. Another type of work that contracts that occur are called design build works. And typically that's where we would hire a designer and then we would turn a full package, one-stop shop to the owner. We do a lot of that too. We don't have any designers. I'm a licensed engineer. We've got 4 other licensed engineers within Western Builders, and not one of us could design anything. We just don't live in that world. We live in a whole different world. And if you're not doing it every day, you're not going to be very good at it. So if somebody wants to ask me how to design a lift to make a big boiler lift into a building, I can do that pretty easily. But if you're going to ask me to build a structure for the Ag Center, I would have to hire expertise to do that. And that's what we've done in multiple jobs. And that's another great way to build relationships. And we use outside architectural firms and design firms. I just put together a design build package for a facility in Amarillo where I brought in expertise from Dallas, from Wisconsin, from California, and from Arizona. I don't know if the project's going to actually happen. The proposal was fun, putting together a bunch of experts to be able to build, but it's at the airport, and I can't go into a lot of detail on it until they announce it, if they announce it. But we really like building that way too, because then we get to kind of, for the first time in most projects, we get to lead the architects, and contractors don't normally get to lead the architects, and it's a fun world where the tables turned. But we do a lot of that. Another question that Dr. Anwar asked me to speak to was, how does Western Builders deal with its core competence and fast-changing construction opportunities and new businesses? I really had to think a lot about this. What I came up with is, I believe our core competence is 100% attributable to quality, knowledgeable field and office leadership. I think that's what we bring to the table probably better than just about anybody else does. With so much repeat work, you better have people who are relational and who are excellent at what they do. The back of our business card, I've got our vision written down. It says, to impact God's world through building with excellence while investing in relationships. Our mission is to use the tools of building to impact lives. And our core values are, we value integrity, relationships, experience, ingenuity, and excellence. And every one of those things it goes back to the people you hire and the people that you develop. So that's a key part of who we are, is getting the right people and making sure that they're trained and able to build well and maintain those relationships. It's hard to recruit to Amarillo. As a guy from Los Alamos, when I moved out here, in Los Alamos, New Mexico, when I moved out here, it was like, where are the trees? It was a real difficult place. There's no hills. And that was 35 years ago. And I wouldn't raise my family anywhere else after I finally figured out what Amarillo was all about. But in order to recruit people here, it's a little bit difficult. So we developed a training program within our company such that we could grow our own for the most part. Avery Beller is part of that plan and has been working with us for several years now and does an excellent job. the development of training in our industry is, there's just not a lot of opportunities for it. There hasn't been in the past, and it's been a real gap in education. I'm currently working with Amarillo College in the Earn and Learn program, and I'm on their advisory board for the construction technology, developing new plans and new products for teaching young people from the AC world how to work in the field, how to develop carpenter skills. Labor in construction is at all-time lowest quality and quantity right now. We just don't have enough people, and we certainly don't have enough quality people. And there's a huge need for them. There's not a construction company in the world right now that's not looking to hire, which is key to you guys as you look forward to the next steps of your lives. But there's so many opportunities in construction that are going to be there for a long time. But we lost the vocational training 10, 15, 20 years ago when the high schools cut it out of the programs, and now they're bringing it back, and we'll hopefully be developing that from that end. But in the other end of it, we've hired several WT construction management people and engineers that are currently with us, and we've also got an internship program that we've not only working with WT with the internship, but we've also done one for Texas A&M, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech, and just kind of all over the place. But what we've developed inside the office was a training program that we called Building Your Tool Belts. And whether you're a project engineer wanting to become a project manager, or you're a superintendent, or a carpenter wanting to become a superintendent in the field, the superintendents in our world are the guys that actually build the buildings. Those are the really geniuses that do it. They are supported by project engineers, project managers in the staff, and of course the accounting department. And we have about 150 people working for us right now, and about 47 salaried employees, and that's the administration, accounting, and business side of it. We have project managers, 12 project managers, and 14 superintendents, and our superintendents are kind of the kings of the job sites. But in each one of those types of work that we have a tool belt that people need to fill. If you're a project engineer, you need to learn how to do scheduling. You need to learn how to do engineering work that's associated with building. You need to know how to build an estimate. You need to know how to write contracts. And all of those are part of the tool belt that we're trying to teach. If you're a superintendent or wanting to become a superintendent, you need to learn how to survey. You need to learn what materials are, materials testing like concrete, wood, structural steel testing. You need to know safety. In fact, everybody inside the company needs to know safety. So that's another tool belt. You need to know compliance. You need to know what's right, what's wrong, and what's expected of you. And as we're building these tool belts, another absolute key thing that we have is that we're building our culture. And companies grow and die based upon their culture. I tried to hire people outside of Western Builders, or outside our area, when we were doing the Walmarts all over the place, and I was sorely neglectful at following up with culture being the key to a company staying strong. I probably had success rate of 2 out of 10 superintendents or field leadership that stayed with us. We have several that did stay with us, but not near as many as if you're growing your own. And I think probably most of y'all read the book Good to Great by Jim Collins. It talks about, he talks about it's all about your people. The bottom line, it's all about your people. And that's the core competency you keep coming back to, and it's a matter of getting the right people on the bus. And then not only do you get the right people on the bus, you got to get them in the right seat. And I think it's absolutely crucial, and that's our strength, and we've been able to do that pretty well. Most of the craftspeople that we're working with right now don't realize the opportunities in the business, and I would say that there's huge opportunities in that world, and I can't remember the dollars. I shouldn't even bring it up, but I did a study one time of what it takes for a college student 4 years of school, paying their own way, and life, going through it, which many of you probably are. And then what's it look like after you get in the workforce after 10 years, the dollars that you can expect to make. And I compared that to a person who went through an apprenticeship program like carpentry, for instance, and starting with not much, and then developing, working in the field the entire time. And you would be shocked at the number of dollars. It's actually at 10 years, it's actually more than a college grad. Now after the 10 years, it goes the other way a little bit. And the cool thing that we're trying to develop that Avery's part of is we're trying to do both. We're trying to get college kids, 4-year degree people, interested in working in the field. And that is incredibly hard to do. It is a recent phenomena that we've probably got 4 to 5 kids that are doing it, working part-time on the job sites. When you had the stadium going, when we had the dorms going, and the other work here, when kids can just come over and work with us and develop a love for construction and then finish their degree plan, which is super important in my brain. At the same time, learning field skills, it's an unbelievably strong advantage is going to the next step. For the first time in my 34 years of being in construction, I'm looking to have superintendents that have college degrees. And that's just not been the case. They've all been craftspeople that have come up. And they're excellent at what they do. But now we've got a little bit different generation coming up, and the work technologies and everything changing is really pointing towards it's important to have both, to understand the field and understand everything that you get out of a college education. Kind of rambled there a little bit too much, but the next question that Dr. Anwar asked me to speak to was, what do you see happening in the U.S. construction and infrastructure industry regarding growth, competition, and new technologies in the next 5 to 8 years? And once again, this took a lot of time for me to kind of study, to understand what really is going on in our industry. And last year really changed the path of the construction industry, along with a lot of other industries. COVID, as everyone in this room is aware, really has put a dent in our industry in ways I never could have imagined 10 years ago. Amarillo is blessed to have a lot of work and a lot of projects, and we are definitely the outlier in the world. COVID shut down architectural design practices, shut down development practices, shut down design firms all over the world, especially in the big cities, who are still shut down, by the way. And it's really hard for a mechanical engineer to collaborate with an architect or a civil engineer or a structural engineer, electrical engineer, building a project. You don't do that very easily on Zoom. And it took an awful lot of time to do coordination or to figure out how to do the coordination between those different specialties, and they haven't been very good at being able to design buildings. So the backlog on designs is really, really backed up. While we're blessed with a lot of really, really good work, I know the contracting firms nearby and in Dallas, the big cities that are really struggling, we'll see a big fallout of construction firms not making it because there's just no work. Developers didn't develop. Design firms are still trying to figure out how to do it, although in Amarillo everything was able to come back. A big point of construction in COVID was we were deemed essential. And because we were deemed essential, we were able to work throughout the entire year. We shut our office down for a couple, I guess it was about 4 weeks before they let us open back up, but we were able to coordinate and keep the jobs going that we already had in place. There was no bidding going on, obviously, but the people in the field were able to work. COVID did not affect our people very much. We had little blasts of a group of electricians that ate lunch together that got COVID, or one got COVID that we had to send home. We had some rebar people that had to send home, a concrete guy, and plumbers, and during that 4-week time frame, we developed protocols there were just no protocols for our industry, so we had to develop them, and we're not members of the big construction group, so we developed our own, and they became very effective, I think, in keeping the jobs open and assuring the owners that the projects could be built safely, and I think we've proven that. I have a philosophy. My wife is a microbiologist, and I have a philosophy that we on the job sites actually hit herd immunity many, many months ago, because I haven't seen COVID cases for 60 days now on any of the job sites. And if you've been on any of those job sites, or if you ever see those job sites, there's people on top of one another. They're working side by side. You can't lift up a piece of rebar without having 2 or 3 people that's, if it's 250-pound load, you've got people right next to one another. But they developed methodologies to work safely, and it worked. So our crews were able to continue working, and nobody lost a paycheck. We paid everybody we sent home because we thought it was the right thing to do, and because we can't afford to lose any of our craftspeople or our project management or anything else. We wanted them to stay viable and working for us. Again, I think a lot of smaller firms will wind up going out of business over this thing. Our business model of developing relationships with owners is going to become even more important, because some facets of the building industry are just going to go away. Senior housing market, which we've built a lot of senior housing. Park Place Towers was the first job I ever was on. It's a 10-story concrete structure that I was on in 1985. That world is going to slow down, if not completely die. How many of you would want to live in a nursing home and not be able to see any of your family for a year, and not be able to mix with one another through the course of this past year? And it's almost, they had to turn those things into prisons, and the demand for future growth in that is just going to go away, or is be very, very slowed. I predict there's going to be a huge change in the building of office buildings, as there are quite a few people that are home on Zoom and working from home. My son went to work for Zondervan up in Michigan, about a year ago. He just started a new job, and he has yet to see the inside of his office. The Zondervans run out of New York City. They don't know when they're ever going to get back in their office. He's got an office somewhere. He just doesn't know what it looks like. So take that, now look at all the big firms out there, and they just don't need the big facilities for their people anymore. So they're just not going to be building it. They're going to develop home technologies for people to work out of their home, even greater than what we have already. So that world's going to go down. Huge banks aren't building anymore, or really slowed down building. Online banking is huge. I venture to say every one of you does your banking online. And you just don't need sticks and bricks anymore to be able to take out a loan. Things are way different. So that building rolls way down. Budget cutting is huge. The online retailing has really cut back retail facilities, but you just don't see any of those coming out anymore. But what you do start seeing is the growth of the warehouse world. Amarillo is a perfect example of what that looks like with the new Amazon warehouse going in. There's one in Lubbock. There's about 5 of them going on in our region right now, and each one of those are 1 million square feet. They're just huge, big things. So that growth is big. Another big change in our industry is national companies are having to leave their world and join with local community builders such as us, or regional builders, because Dallas doesn't have any projects being built like they have in the past. It's really slowed down with some of those. So the big firms, we just saw in Amarillo, the new Potter County Courthouse building was just taken by a firm by the name of Dolphin Peterson, who's never built in Amarillo before. But they're huge. They're like 50, 60 times bigger than Western Builders, and Potter County decided that's the way they wanted to build. We joint ventured with Hunt Construction to build the Sod Poodle Stadium. And they came to us and asked if we'd be part of their team, and their methodology was, we know stadiums. We've built stadiums all over the United States. We don't know the local construction market. And we looked at them and I said, we built stadiums, but it's been high school stadiums. It's been college stadium. We just finished the WT stadium, but never a Major League Baseball stadium. We want your expertise, but we want to be boss. So we joint ventured with them, and we took the higher percentage of the joint venture. They brought their expertise on the front end, and we took our expertise on how to build, where to build, and it was super successful. Really, really fun building. And we have since tried to team with them on several different jobs, and we've not been successful, but that's a new dynamic that's happening in our industry that I think is going to be even more apparent. So new technology is a big thing for a small company like us. The big companies can come to you and say, hey, we've got a whole team of people that do 3D modeling, and we've got people that can do 3D modeling, but that's not what they do every day. Our people are, I would say, more well-rounded because they have to do project management and scheduling, et cetera, along with 3D modeling versus a very high technological high jump to get past when you get 15 people in the office that do nothing but model. It's a big deal. So there's another methodology by which the big companies are trying to leverage their help to get you in the small companies. We've always been at the forefront of new technology within our industry, and construction's really been slow joining the computer world. We were the first company in the region to have computers in the office. We were the first company in the region to have computer software for estimating and scheduling, and everybody has all that stuff today. But we were also the first company that put the first laser on a job site, which was when I was still in the field, which was probably 1992. We were using lasers and distance meters. And nowadays they have some of the highest tech facilities and machinery that you've ever seen. We've got what they call total station, which literally will do your surveying for you. To an extent, you set the unit up in one place, you program in all the points that you're trying to get it to see, and the machine can turn and tell you the distance you've got to go out and map every single point of a building, and you don't ever have to move the equipment, and it ties in with the satellites above, and you get down the road. But that equipment is really, really expensive, and so the big companies kind of can get their foot in the door with you by saying, hey, we've got satellite gear that we want to work with you on. Another big development in construction is the use of drones in construction. They're doing a lot of surveying with drones. They're doing a lot of mapping with drones. A lot of road work companies are using them. We've used them on every job for documentation of construction processing, which is no more than taking a bunch of pictures from the same place from start to finish. There are all sorts of new laser measuring devices that are out there that weren't there 2 years ago, 5 years ago. For the first time in my career, you can go out on a job site, and all of our leadership that's doing the work on the job are using iPads instead of plans. On the job that Avery's on right now, the superintendent and his main foreman have all the plans on an iPad, and they keep everything up to date. And the Kenyon Independent School District High School has got one sheet has been modified 200 and something times to date because of some development problems on the design. And this new iPad plan grid unit software updates those plans to everybody in the field all at the same time. So everybody in the field doesn't have to carry around a big old roll that would have consisted of the first set of plans and 200 additional sheets that had to be modified through the course of building, which would have been practically impossible, and now you have it on a page. And everybody has the same plan, which is really pretty important if you're going to build the same thing. So technology is huge in where construction is going. The software development is growing every day. Like I say, software was way behind any other industry, I think, but construction is catching up fast. So the key to success in our world, in the technological world, is in the growth of these big companies coming into Amarillo. We bid a job a couple weeks ago where I didn't know 4 out of the 5 firms that were bidding it. They were coming in from Oregon. In fact, the new Thompson swimming pool the swimming pool sub is out of Oregon. Never been in this part of the world. I don't know where they came from, but there's no work going on in Oregon today. They're just very slow in the Northwest. So you're seeing that migration coming in so many different ways. I was trying to think of the best way to describe how we can maintain our success in our region. And I'd like to use the analogy of the ant versus the elephant. While we're the biggest regional contractor in the area, north of Lubbock, these firms that are coming in are many multiples our size. So the analogy of them being the elephant and us being the ant is very, very real. We've worked with them. We know what it's like. We know how hard it is to work within the formats of the big companies and the bureaucracies that are built in. So we have to we have to be very nimble, agile, and we've got to adapt to changes quickly, which is just like the ant. We can turn on a dime, and we're amazingly resilient, just like the ant, versus an elephant who is really, really, really powerful, but they're slow to turn. They're strong, they're much heavier, and they're slower paced. And it requires time for them and time and space for them to be able to change direction, versus us, where we can be agile and we can react to what happens very quickly, unlike some of the larger firms. And so we have to stay ahead of the curve through the use of the newly developed technologies, and we're trying to stay in the middle of that as we continue to move forward as a company. Infrastructure growth in our industry is going to be huge. Just think of the number of people who are coming into Texas from California and from the Northwest and from the areas that are still shut down. So Austin, if any of you all been to Austin, it's a crazy busy place. Everything's overloaded. No roads are built right. They're way behind their infrastructure. There was construction going on all over the place until COVID hit. And COVID's a lot like the Northwest. I've got multiple friends that have been building inside the city of Austin, and the compliance is much stiffer there than in Amarillo, and the projects are really not going as well. The delays are like 2 times the original scheduled dates, et cetera, et cetera. But there's so many people moving in there, you can see that's going to be huge growth within construction for the next few years. So housing is going to be hot, roads and bridges construction will be strong, utility work will be growing. And you combine all those issues that they've already got with the recent failure we saw within the energy system, and that whole thing is going to grow pretty quick. So I would say in 5 to 8 years, you'll see a whole bunch more energy infrastructure work through. That'll be significant. And Western Builders going to have to be nimble enough to look and find those. We work with a group 8 years ago on a project over in Clovis, New Mexico, that had it been in place, there would not have been the emergencies that everybody saw with the energy system with ERCOT. There was a big facility. It was going to be probably $100 million that was going to be like a giant switching station that would have been able to bring power from all over the United States and switch it to the ERCOT system and to the Amarillo system that we currently use. And whoever saw that way back when was very prescient. They really had a great plan, but they couldn't get the funding to build it. I would almost guarantee you that that'll get built. Now, the plans are already designed. SBS was very involved with it. Not SBS, Excel was very involved in it. So that type of work is going to be strong for some time. But finally, the last thing I'll say is for Western builders to stay strong going into the future, we're going to have to be really, really smart in as far as keeping a diverse backlog and not stay in just one sector of the construction world, but multiple sectors, which we do currently, like the cheese plant, like higher education, like the medical world, warehouse world. We've got to keep touching all that world, and we maintain some software that helps us understand what's going on, where we've got contracts started and contract without construction yet, prospective projects and horizon projects, and I monitor those every day. So we see what's in their marketplace, and so then we can focus strategically on the areas where we can be most effective. We're not very good at house building, but the house builders aren't very good at being able to build a vet school. So we've got to play our marketplace the right way, and I think we'll continue to be good. And we got to continue to keep developing our people properly. So I've rambled on a lot.
But very good.
Yeah.
Let's open this for your questions. There are a lot of good things Mr. Rohane mentioned. I mean, we need to learn from his insightful comments and thought-provoking ideas. Let's start over there.
Quick question. I'm looking to get into AVL.
A little bit louder, please.
Sorry?
Louder.
Louder? Okay. I'm looking into getting into like the AVL integration, like the audio, video, lighting integration and all that stuff. Are y'all looking towards moving into that, at least looking at people that are good at doing something along those lines?
You know, that I would have said before a month ago that probably wouldn't be our world very much, but now with AC building the new innovation station, we're actually building that for them, and in the attraction of is it Blackwater? I can't think of the name of the group, the filming group that's coming in. That's going to become a huge part of design in that world. They have some big plans for that.
Are you talking about Sharp and Iron Studios?
Sharp and Iron Studios is exactly right. Thank you. I think there's some potential there. Most of what you just described comes from the electrical engineering world, and because we don't have any electrical engineers on staff, we hire that. There was a very, very strong electrical engineer who actually was a professor at WT, Parman Reynolds. But he just retired, and I'm not sure who's going to take over his practice. But it's a world a little bit different than what we live in. You know, I forgot, Dr. Anwar asked me to talk about what you do when you guys take your next step with regard to getting hired. And I just wrote down a couple of real quick things. When you go to interview, when you're looking for a new job, this is what I like to hear. Tell your potential, the future employer. Number one, you're a fast learner. Everybody's going to say that, but help people understand that you can learn things quickly. Tell them that you're going to learn you're going to remember what you were taught, and be able to apply what you were taught. Do what you say you're going to do. That's my biggest pet peeve. Show up every day, which is 5% of our employees out in the field show up every day, right, Avery? That's a bad problem. And Avery has separated himself out from the rest of the world because he shows up every day when we need him. And lastly, work hard. But tell your employer that's what you're going to do. And I think that would open my eyes if I'm interviewing somebody. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
As far as like the College of Business majors in here, is there any opportunities in the construction field for us?
Absolutely is. A triangle, the triangle of building is field, project management in the office side of it. And we actually hired a gentleman that we helped him get his MBA here. He had a bachelor's of business administration, and his name was Dustin Roberts, and he has since opened his own business. Dustin worked in our accounting area or the business side of the world. It's not as many people probably employed in that part of the business, but every general contractor, every bigger subcontract would have that work available. It'd probably be a little bit different than what you've been taught probably, but business application is business application anywhere. And I would tell you that about of the presidents, I'm in a peer group with 8 other general contractors, and the presidents and all but one are business majors, business admin majors. They're the thinkers, they're the creative people, they're the guys that really understand how the business works and how you make money. And people like me, the engineering side of it, we don't know business. we don't know accounting very well, and we know how to build, but we don't know how to maintain a strong business that well. But I've got 3 business majors work for us right now. So in our area, it might be a little bit harder at first. Those opportunities do come up, though. I know subcontractors have them also. It's a great question.
Yeah, as far as that's just like entry level, or do you have to have like prior experience, like in the field?
Dustin started with us as an intern, which was really, really helpful, and transition time was very, very fast for him, but he's the only one we've had that way. I think probably it's more likely those internships are not as available, and they ought to be, but they're not. There's not a lot of forward-thinking construction people in our region. Definitely there are in the bigger cities, as far as internships, working with the schools to develop that expertise early. It's, whenever you can get on to learn, when you can do on-site learning, whatever business it's in, you give a huge advantage to your employment going forward. If I could hire every one of our interns, I would. I would say 60% of our project managers right now came up through our internship program because we know who they are. You give a chance to find out how they work. You know whether or not they fit your culture. It's just really, really, really important to get that experience in the real world before you graduate. I wished I had an internship when I was in college in construction. I wound up working for the Forest Service in the summers, and I was a professional backpacker, so it was a little bit different.
Other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Like without that, the COVID-19 pandemic hit the global economy. So like, how did it affect your business, and how did you grow?
Well, it lowered our profitability for sure because we had to provide so many different PPP items to the job sites. It did not affect the business with regard to producing of the projects. It did hurt our profitability a little bit, just because we were already building those jobs. We already had contracts. We didn't have a way to build in new costs. And so those costs just came out of our pocket to be able to provide better sanitary conditions and provide the equipment necessary to keep people spread out. We had to buy some new machinery to help that we normally wouldn't have used, would not have bought, but it made the jobs easier in that sense, more safer with regard to COVID. Our office had some issues early on with people getting sick, but we never had a spread within the office. It was always one person here, one person there, one person here. And we were able to curtail it to where we never had multiple people at home, except when Amarillo shut down. So it hurt us in multiple different ways. We probably spent $250,000 on safety associated with the COVID in order to keep our people safe. At least that. Plus, the bigger cost to us was paying everybody when they got sick, keeping salaries going and maintaining our personnel. But that's part of the process. Yes, sir.
I was just wondering, how long are you guys planning on keeping COVID precautions going? I know it's the middle of the pandemic, but I was wondering if you had a forecast or.
That is a great question. My personal experience is pretty interesting. When I'd come on the job sites forever, it's kind of like having field hands wear hard hats. You kind of fight it all the time. People don't like those things necessarily. It was the same thing with masks. I'd come on the job site and I'd walk around the corner and everybody'd be pulling up their masks, and you've seen it around school with everybody, the same thing. They got to a place where everybody was pretty compliant, being safe with it. The last times I've been on the job sites within the last 2 weeks, you can count the number of masks on one hand. There's just not very much there. Our policies have not changed, so I have to lecture our superintendents about you got to still maintain the policies. The biggest thing is the lead of the owners. If the owners are not requiring those procedures and processes to be in place, then we're slowly dropping them. We no longer take temperatures at our office. We haven't had a COVID case in 120 days in the office. Most of us that were at risk have had vaccinations, so we feel like we're in a pretty good place. All the work at Texas Tech is still going to be under the COVID requirements because Texas Tech is just like WT. WT, I think, is a little bit different than even Texas Tech. They're being pretty stringent with it still. So we have to be. I would say by early summer, those will drop off from what I'm hearing.
One more question, since we are running out of time. Yes.
How did you go about building your company culture, and whenever you would get new employees, how did you ensure they have the same quality and integrity?
Boy, that's a really, really good question. It took me about 25 years to figure out how to do that. I'm not sure I have figured it out yet. A whole lot of it is being able to have people coached and mentored once they're hired, but the hiring process is really, really important. We do it what I call a 360. I wind up doing the initial filter of I'm talking about salaried people, not not carpenters. So salaried people like superintendents, assistant superintendents, anybody in the office, project managers, engineers, accounting staff. I'll do the first interview as a filter, and my filters are very relational. I want to know a skill level, but more importantly, I want to see if they're a fit. And if I feel like they're a fit, then I do a 360. So 360 is where I bring somebody into the office and say it's a new project manager or an engineer coming out of school that we want to see whether or not he or she fits. I'll have an accounting person in the interview, and I'll have a project manager, an engineer in the interview, and I'll have a superintendent in the interview. So I'll get the perspective of accounting. They've got their own questions they follow up on. I'll have the project management questions they'll follow up on. The superintendent's going to ask questions that relate to him in the field, which a whole bunch is what he would be asking for is empathy. Are you going to help me be the best I can be? So are you going to be a good communicator? Whereas a project manager, you can't sit in the office all day. You got to get up the field and see the job sites. But are you going to communicate well with me? The accounting people are going to say whether or not they have any kind of math skills or accounting skills that will mix nicely with the accounting department. And project management, they're going to find out whether or not they've got the wherewithal to learn how to be a good scheduler, how to be a good project manager. So with all those three things, our filters on the front end are super duper important, just like Jim Collins' book. Get the right people on the bus. Then, more importantly, get the right people in the right seat on the bus. In order for that to happen, we mentor everybody. Everybody who comes on that's in a salaried role is assigned a mentor, coaching. And there'll be assistant superintendents will work with a superintendent for years developing culture, learning culture. And then I move those guys around from job to job so they see management styles of different superintendents and not just one person. So it's just a matter of surrounding them with the right people and growing that culture the right way, trying to grow the culture from within. Most of the time I can tell within the first year and a half, 2 years, whether or not somebody's going to fit our culture. And we have very, very, very little turnover. We've got people working with us that have been with us for 40 years. I lost a project manager this year who's been with us for 15 years, but he got a better opportunity out at Pantex. It works. I mean, it just does work because the turnover is so low.
I have a last question. Would you like to comment on this point? Many of these students, they will have BBA degrees or bachelor's, and then some of them will go for MBA. Would you advise them to also maybe seek some kind of certification like project management, logistics, those kind of, because they can complement your business?
I definitely would recommend it, but I would recommend it after they're started work. Like I've got my professional engineer's license, and you can't get it until after you've worked. Project management certifications and the rest of them, the ones that I've been involved with, even concrete certifications, et cetera, that they mean more when you've been able to apply that work to begin with, and then take that work and grow your knowledge in it, and then get certified in it. And I'll just say, it becomes a selling tool, But to develop the expertise is always good. We want to hire people that are lifelong learners, and every one of those programs makes you learn, makes you keep on top of the front end of whatever you're looking at. We've pushed 2 CPAs through. We've done lots of training. All 4 of the professional engineers besides myself all came through Western Builders, and we pushed it and paid for it. I mean, continuing ed, same thing. I want all our people to stay on top of everything.
Okay. Well, since we are running out of time, I just would like to make a few comments. From today's lecture, I'm going to steal a lot of things what you said today. I would also benchmark some of the things Mr. Rohane said. I would write here, I just wrote these things here. Be agile, stay ahead of the curve, okay? Show up, work hard. These are all the things what we recommend, and that's the way to be successful in the world. But the gentleman we have right now, you can see his leadership. His company is over $100 million big. What is the deal? What is the reason? Now we know the reason. Wherever we go, we see Western builders, Western builders, Western. And this is how the business world works. But thank you so much for nominating his name. It was a great session. One last comment I would like to make. I sent him an email. I've been doing these seminars for the last 20 plus years, and he applied on the same day. And within 2 days, we were done with the schedule. We were done with his, he asked me to send him questions. In 2 days, folks, we were done with the planning. So that shows his commitment, discipline, and I hope you also benchmark Mr. Rohane, because we need to have these kind of people in our community, in our business world. But before he leaves, thank you so much. And let's
My pleasure.
come back. Thank you, sir.